Well, my guest tonight is the founder of MyPlace. Wikipedia describes them as an Australian conspiracy theorist group. The ABC describes them as sovereign citizens. Now, this is a term they absolutely reject. However you describe them, there's no doubt there's a growing number of Australians who've become disillusioned with our government bodies and the rules that govern us. So I thought tonight would be a good opportunity to find out more about this growing movement with Darren Bergwerf from MyPlace. Darren, welcome to McKnight Tonight. Darren, I think you may have turned your microphone off.
I have, yes. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for inviting me onto your program, and I'm happy to be here and talk some truth.
Oh, well, let's see. Now, look, our original reason for inviting you onto the show is because Jill, our producer, her and I were talking about sovereign citizens, and it was an issue I was keen to explore. Again, I as I just said, I know you take exception to that term. Why is that? And can you explain the difference between your movement and that term?
Yeah, that term is only used by morons, to be frank. It is an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron. There's a legal maxim that you cannot join two things that are not the same. And to be sovereign and to be a citizen are poles apart. They're polar opposites. So
yeah, I get that. That's a fair point.
We don't identify as sovereign citizens. We're truth seekers. We are the silent majority that's silent no more. And we're about to set this country awake on a level that people won't be able to comprehend with the corruption and the fraudulent system that we're kind of stuck in.
Okay, I want to get to that, but I also want to ask, when we see video of a person being pulled over by the police and they're saying you don't have the legal right to do all that, what is the term we use for those people? We love terms, we love a collective. How do we describe those people, and do you see yourself in that group?
They're pioneers. They're learning. There's a difference between lawful and legal. And the legal system, in a lot of people's perceptions, is not a lawful system, and statutes and acts are not lawful. And we are discovering and educating ourselves on what is true law. Where does law come from?
Now, one person doesn't determine a group, but we have people like Dezi Freeman, who obviously went to extremes. He killed police. Do people like you
allegedly
support?
Well, he wasn't in a group. He wasn't in a group.
It was interesting you used the term allegedly then.
Well, there's been no court case. There's been nothing put forward. It's all. If that was to be run in a court case, that would be, at the moment, would be hearsay.
Yeah, it has to be proven in a court of law. I 100% accept that. But do you support, if he was found to have taken this action, do you support that kind of action when you're standing up to so-called oppressors, or however you see the government?
No, not at all. We are a peaceful movement. 100% we're a peaceful movement, and we're here to facilitate and educate not only our community, but the people that are in positions of trust, that have a fiduciary duty to do the best thing by the people, and they're simply not. They're not doing that.
Now, I'd go through the list of things that I understand that you guys are talking about. 5G is one of them, and my wife Amanda, who switches this show, is doing a building biology course and seeing the evidence of what Wi-Fi does and 5G, and we turn our Wi-Fi off at night. So there are things that you're looking at, including the COVID response, how we treated that, and these are legitimate concerns becoming part of the mainstream. But do you think all your views are mainstream? Because I think you go a lot further than those kind of ideas.
Look, I do go a lot further because I'm sick of playing politics and beating around the bush. So my language is very strong, my opinion is very strong, and I call a spade a spade. So there's no grey area to me. The way I see it, in my opinion, the whole system is an organised crime syndicate, and that's just black and white for me. There's no rule of law in this country whatsoever. Law is supposed to be distributed equally, whether you're a politician, whether you're a judge, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a premier, and that's simply not happening.
I want to follow that up, but I want to play what you said at the Melbourne protest in September last year because it's of the same theme. Let's take a look at that and then explore this issue in depth.
The time for politics and policy is over. This is not about race, religion, flags, or individual issues that we have, because there are hundreds of them. And I could ask 100 different people around this country what's their major problem, and there'd be 100 different answers. Okay, there is only one problem, and that is a foreign government that is committing war crimes and crimes against humanity against good Australian people. And it is time that we focus all of our attention not on the semantics of flags, religions, race, and all the arguments between each other, and come together as one people with the one common problem, and that is a criminal government.
Now, you just said a criminal government there. A moment ago, you said an organised crime syndicate. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, well, the way I see it, in my opinion, and I've lived and breathed this for the last 6 years since war was declared on the people back in 2020. There are war crimes being committed. There are crimes against humanity being committed. There is racketeering going on. There's embezzlement. There is what else? With money laundering. I mean, it's in your face day in, day out. Where's the 15 billion gone through the CFMEU when Jacinta Allen was minister for that portfolio? Where can you spend $300,000
isn't part of a democracy
on a
that
machete
these
bin?
things get caught? Sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Isn't part of a democracy and the government that we have that these things do get caught out? You know, if it was a crime syndicate, they would be able to cover this up. But because we are a free, to a point, society, we have a press that investigates these things. You know these things that you're talking about because of reporting, because of journalists doing their job. Doesn't that mean it's working?
Okay, so there's some reporting. Where is the charges? Why is Dan Andrews not behind bars? I mean, you know, he's got a litany of crimes that he's been involved in allegedly, and been charged for, with the red shirts and the bike boy incident, and many others. So there's no way that the people in this country can get any action by the authorities to have these people that are in positions of trust dealt with the way they should be dealt with, and dealt with the way any corporation that was doing these crimes would be dealt with as well.
So what would you like to see happen?
Oh, we need a full transparent investigation. I mean, we've got suppression orders all over the place. If they don't like something that's been discovered, or we have a list of 28 individuals that is under a 90-year suppression order in the federal parliament that names in a police report pedophiles, and one of those was an ex-prime minister. We're talking about judges. We have over 600 Victorian police right at this moment are under investigation for all series of crimes, including domestic violence, child pornography, and other serious indictable offences. So while we hear about it, we never see anyone actually get charged and get jailed for these crimes.
Now, that list you're referring to, if my memory serves me correct, was set in Parliament by Heffernan?
Senator Heffernan, yes.
Yeah.
And that was on the Woods Royal Commission, correct, state-run institutions that facilitated pedophilia and child rape.
And of course, to be clear, just because people may not know, things said in Parliament are protected. They call it Coward's Castle. A lot of people that say things in there. I'm not specifically saying this, but the reason being is that you can say things on the floor of Parliament that if you walked out of the building and said it, you could be sued for defamation. You can't be sued for defamation in Parliament.
And why is that so? Where's the transparency? Where's the accountability? You can't cover up your crimes just because you're in a parliament. That parliament is sacrosanct to the Australian people. Those people are in a position of fiduciary duty and trust. They are breaching trust law. They're breaching their fiduciary duty every single day they walk into that building.
I hear what you're saying, but at least I would argue them being able to do that means that sometimes we do hear things that we wouldn't be able to hear if a politician has the guts to stand up and say it. Yes, some people might call it coward's castle. Others call it standing up and doing the right thing. I really want to drill down on this idea. You said there needs to be an investigation on on governments. Who would do that? If realistically, I had all the power and said to you, okay, Darren, I am going to get an investigation into our government. I'm hearing what you're saying. How does that work? Who does it?
And that's the quandary we are in, because like I said before, it is my strong opinion through 5 or 6 years of study and research that they investigate themselves. They are all part of it as far as I'm concerned. And that's where they're colluding, they're protecting each other. It is acting like an organised crime syndicate from the very top down to your state police forces, your judiciary. The whole system, as far as I'm concerned, is protecting each other.
Do you think ICAC in New South Wales does a good job? It certainly has brought down premiers and the like.
Yeah, there certainly is some things, and but nowhere near enough. I mean, this kind of stuff that's going on is rife. It is right across the board. It's in every industry. It's in every kind of institution that shouldn't be. That should be held to a way higher account. That should be held to more transparency than private business. But they're not. They make laws to protect themselves. They make election laws so they don't get voted out. And the whole system is broken, and the silent majority are walking away from the system en masse. And there was well over 4 million people in 2025, just 12 months ago, that didn't cast a vote or cast a donkey vote. That is a vote of no confidence in the system.
Do you think that's why people are drifting towards One Nation at the moment?
Oh, 100%. And I think it's fantastic. Even though I think it's misguided, I'm not a supporter of One Nation either, because the system is the problem. And the minute they start to look like they're teetering, they'll roll out these teal candidates that call themselves independent, but they're there just to dilute the vote and funnel their votes back to the two major parties. So the system, as far as I'm concerned, is that locked up. You could call it rigged if you wanted to, but it's that locked up that it doesn't serve the people. We cannot get a voice for the people inside Parliament, because anyone that you vote for, they might be the nicest candidate on earth, whether they be Labor or Liberal. The fact is, they will not be the voice for the people, for their constituents, because they have to vote along party lines.
I agree with that, and that is a legitimate issue that you raise, because they have to go along with the party lines. But it is interesting. We have for years talked about a two-party system, and yet with the polling, if the votes were done today based on the polling happening at the moment, One Nation would be forming government. So isn't the party system, the two-party system, breaking down right now?
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's really good to see. It's encouraging to see that people that have just blindly walked in every year, every 3 years, voted Labor because they've always voted Labor, because their parents voted Labor, or Liberal, same thing. They are now on the move. They are starting to take an interest in what's going on in this country, and they're moving away from the major parties. Other people are moving away from the politics altogether and learning how to be self-governed, how to educate themselves and take control of their own lives without any government interference, because we all have free will. And if you go right back to where law comes from, which is our creator, we were born with free dominion over the land. We were born with free will, where no man can make a law or tell another man what to do. And I'm only using that as mankind. So we have got into such a disgusting state, and we've allowed this to happen. I've allowed it to happen, and I feel it's my duty for my kids and my grandkids that I actually start to turn this ship around and get some common sense back into this country, and get some patriotism back in this country. We've had government after government ever since Don Chipp tried to keep the bastards on us 50 years ago. Liberal Labor have sold off our assets. It's now a national security issue. Our ports are foreign owned. Our airports are foreign run. Our water and our electricity grids, our farmland, our mines, I mean, it is actually that would to me amount, in my opinion, to an act of treason against the people.
Let me ask you this. We currently, and I think there's actually a lot of validity in some of the things you're saying. Our governments don't always serve the interest of the people. There's a lot of self-serving interests taking part. I don't think we're as bad as what's happening in America at the moment, but it absolutely does happen. But we live in a society governed by a set of rules that we've all sort of agreed to. Now, we may not agree with every rule that's out there, you know, like there may be things we don't like, but doesn't it give us a separation from when we were born in mankind, we could be attacked by anyone. There are now repercussions if you try to come into my house and take things from me. And we won't go down that path of, you know, what judges do and all that kind of stuff because, you know, but my point being is that there's an essentially society rules that we all agree are a good thing. So if you turn your back on governments, I'm just trying to work out what the alternative is.
Well, it's basically, and this is going to take a bit of time. We're all growing into different people. So the way that we've lived the last 50 years, the way I see it, isn't the way I'm going to live the next 30 or 40, whatever I may have left. And we are all becoming a more moral, with more integrity, cause no loss, do no harm. And we are starting to self-govern. And, you know, it's a responsibility.
So you think we're becoming better people?
Yeah, 100% better people. Yes. Yep. I mean, I had my own instance the other day where 5 years ago, I probably would have just gotten a car and driven off. I slipped a block of chocolate into my back pocket because I had my arms full. I didn't get a basket at IGA. And I got to the car and realised it was there and I hadn't paid for it. I went back into the shopping centre and I paid for it. 5 years ago, I might have just said, well, I'm in the car now. I might as well, I would have just potentially driven off. And look, I own who I've been. I own what I've done and I own mistakes that I make. And we are all trying to achieve to be better. But when we are run by a system that is so and it is, and anyone that tries to argue that it's not corrupt really has their head buried in the sand. And we've allowed it, we've watched it, we've known about it for years, and we've allowed it to happen. And it got to the point in 2020, like I said, when the government declared war on the people with lockdowns and curfews and shooting protesters that didn't want to, it was my body, my choice for so long, and then all of a sudden, no, that's out the window. It's no such thing anymore. If you don't get vaccinated, then you can't work, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't be part of society. That's an act of terrorism, in my opinion.
Look, I've had these chats. I think a lot of mistakes were made. Here's the difference, I think, between you and I, though. I do think people in power were trying to do what they thought was the right thing. Now, was it the right thing? Questionable. I don't think it was right to force everyone to put something in their body that they didn't want to put in, something that was new, and that they basically said, you can't be part of society unless you put that in you. So, but was it terrorism? That's where I think it crosses a line for me.
Okay, what you need to do is maybe go and do some research in the 1995 Crimes Act, what the element for terrorism is. Okay, and it clearly defines in that act that what they did at 11 o'clock every morning, Dan Andrews and Brett Sutton stood there. They terrorised the Australian people, right? They scared the hell out of them. And we knew before this so-called worst virus since the Spanish flu, we knew it was a load of crap. All right, it was a scam-demic, and we knew that. And the people in power, the way I see it, that I classify them three ways. They're fully complicit in the criminality, they're absolutely ignorant to what's going on, or they know what's going on and they're too cowardly to have their voice heard and speak the truth. Now, either one of those three, if you're in public office and you fit into one of those categories, you should never, ever, ever hold public office ever again.
Well, that's the power of the vote, isn't it? The people decide.
Well, it's not, because you've got no one to vote for. You can't get into the system, right? They tell you who your Labor candidate is. They tell you who your Liberal candidate is. They funnel all the votes through the preferential voting system that go straight back to them all the time. So they keep control.
I'm still, if you take COVID out of it and we move, you say we're becoming better people, and that it almost sounded to me like you were saying we self-govern. I think you actually used that term, actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. So is your suggestion that we don't have any government?
No, that's never going to happen. It'll be a long time down the track. There has to be a transition, but people should be left alone to their own devices to live their life happily, go about their business and get on with their life without so much government overreach. And one of my favourite sayings that I got off the Eureka Stockade flag actually is when tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. So I feel that it's my duty now to spend every minute of every day fighting for justice, fighting for truth, and exposing the system that is so corrupt. And more people starting to get to it now. Everyone's getting on board. And there's going to be some sweeping changes throughout this country and throughout the world over the next 6 months that is going to rock people's world. They will not be able to cope with what happens.
What does that mean?
It means every government around the world is being removed. You see it in Ireland, you see it in England, you see it all over the world. The people are sick and tired of welcoming criminals, murderers, rapists into their country. That get no justice for what happens to them, and all the people are fighting back. They are deporting en masse, and I'm not an anti-immigration individual by any stretch, but the writing's on the wall. This is not just an Australian problem. This is a global problem, and it's happening all around the world at the same time. There is an awakening going on the planet. And a lot of people have got a lot of catching up to do, but we're here to facilitate that and to help educate and show people what's going on so they can actually process the anger, the hurt, and all the other things that they're going to have to process when they realise that their whole life has been a lie and everything we've ever believed, we've been defrauded and lied to continuously.
So when you say governments are going to be thrown out, you are talking about by voting and different parties coming in, like we're seeing in Australia with One Nation. You're not talking about people rising up in the streets and forcing people out and forcing the Prime Minister out.
No, it's not a revolution. It's not an uprising. No, what I call it, and I called it this when I opened my building in the middle of the lockdowns in Frankston, when the cops came down our back lane 3 times. And he rolled his window down at the end of one of our meetings. We had 150 people inside when we weren't allowed to go out and mingle. And he said, "How's the revolution going along?" And I said, "No, mate, you got it all wrong. It's an evolution. We are winning the hearts and the minds of the people. We're doing it peacefully. We're doing it through knowledge. And all these so-called conspiracy theories that people talk about, that whole narrative is sinking like a rock. A theory stops being a theory the minute you provide facts and evidence. And there is plenty of fact and evidence about what we're speaking about that gets rid of that theory tag very quickly.
One person doesn't make a movement. You're very measured in all the things you're saying. And that speech I looked at in Melbourne, very measured. But there are obviously people who the media have termed sovereign citizens. And I'm sorry that I keep coming back to that term. I don't have something else to go to. But at the moment, willing to be educated. But when you see these people fighting the law and saying your laws don't apply to me, do you associate with those people, or do you look at them and say, no, you've got it wrong? We have to work within the system, not from outside of it.
Well, the whole thing is very convoluted. Everyone's on a different page, and it's almost the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Agreed.
So there are people that are getting sucked back in, what I believe to be sucked back in to the system because they've been thrown a few breadcrumbs with Pauline Hanson. There are people that are far more out there and challenging stuff more than me. I'm trying to be a little bit of a middle ground. I speak strong language, but I can back it up with plenty of paperwork, plenty of evidence. And I try not to be get angry and abusive. And that's just something I've got to work on because it's innate in me. I've always been a brawler, a fighter. I'm a tradie. I grew up. I was on the streets when I was 16. So I've lived a full life. And I'm an adrenaline junkie. I'm passionate and I'm proud. And when I get my teeth into something, and I won't let go of it. And this is one of those things that it consumes me. I spend 8 or 10 hours a day talking on the phone. A lot of days, I'm meeting new connections all the time that are very high level. I used to say at the start, I always seemed to organise these meetings of minds, and I was always the dumbest one in the room. And I'm just a sponge, so I'm absorbing so much information, and I've upskilled and elevated my level of knowledge in the last 3 or 4 years, which is just it's been vertical.
Do you ever accept that maybe sometimes you get it wrong?
100%. Yes. Yep. I think it happened back in 1997. I think was the last time.
That's the kind of line I'd use.
Well, look, I am, I'm coming across pretty serious, but I was always a class clown. I always had one-liners that would just floor the whole class. So I do like to take the piss, and I do like to have a laugh, but and we do that. But the situation is so serious at the moment that if we don't get people to switch on, then this country's going to go down the tubes even further.
Yeah, we're obviously having an issue with your internet connection there because your camera has frozen. But I will continue because we're almost done. But I wasn't clear when in your answer about when we talk about those people who say that Australian law doesn't apply to them. What is your and I know you said everyone's different, and I agree. And I said when I asked that question originally that not one person does not make a whole movement. But do you agree with what they're saying that this, because there are a lot of people who believe that the laws that we all live by don't apply to them because they will pull out something from the Constitution and say, here's my legal proof, this doesn't apply to me?
No, look, I think that gets misconstrued, to be honest. It looks like yours is freezing up.
It's only freezing up your end. I think we're seeing a bit of you, so we'll push on through.
Yeah. No, that's all right. So yours is frozen up where the screen I'm looking at, I'm talking continuously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, look, it's not about the laws don't apply to them. The issue a lot of people have is under the Constitution, there's supposed to be a separation of powers, right? There's 3 branches of government. Well, there's actually 4 branches of government. The one that they never talk about is the highest level of government, and that is the elector. They are at the top of the tree. So they've inverted it and put us at the bottom. And there's no separation of powers between the judiciary and the government and the acts that they make. And the law's not being administered. So it's hypocrisy 101. And that's where people say, well, you know what? Until you can actually provide a lawful and a balanced rule of law in this country, then don't come knocking on my door and tell me I can't do this or I can't do that. So that's a lot of the attitude that I see.
But where does that leave us? If this idea of self-governing, how does resolution dispute happen? Like you're saying, I get to live my life, that's great. But what if I suddenly interfere with you? Do we go back to like when we were cavemen and we just fight it out? I like living in society. I like the fact that there are rules that we can all agree to.
Yeah, and I do too, and I think they need to still be there. You can't be doing 100 down a residential street where there's kids playing. I mean, that's just that's dishonourable. There's no integrity in acting like that. And if you can't self-govern, then yes, I do believe there has to be a system there to govern people like that. But where do you draw the line? They keep changing the goalposts continually to the point where you can't even turn sideways without getting a fine.
And look, I'll agree with you on that. I do think there's a lot of times they put rules in that weren't necessarily needed. a lot of rules are safe. We put seatbelts on in cars. Once upon a time, we didn't have to do that. You know, they're trying to get people to stop smoking. I spoke about it earlier in tonight's show. And they overtax it to the point that people go looking for illegal options that are much cheaper. And so I think in some way society does push back when they overstep without an uprising.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where it's going to take time. And it's not a matter of being, we're going to have 26 million people that self-govern. There's no laws, there's no parliament, there's no police or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about people that are doing the right thing, leave them alone and let them live their life in peace. And you comment before with the local councils. I mean, that comes in a similar kind of vein, because I disagree also with getting rid of local councils, because then you're centralising power to a smaller band of people. So we need to decentralise power, which is what I'm talking about with this, self-governance. Part of my place and what we're about is decentralising power from Canberra and Spring Street to every town, suburb, neighbourhood, street, household and individual to
But
take back our power.
like? Sorry, I know I keep harping on this, and it might be a much bigger question for another time, but it's the ADHD in me. I hear that, and I want to know, okay, so if Canberra's not in charge, who's in charge? How does it work, even though you want to spread it out?
Yeah, well, Canberra will be in charge, and it's going to take a while to change this, years and generations for this whole concept to kind of wash through. But when I say taking back our power, I'm talking about educating ourselves, okay? Because we've been, everything that's built these days, you have to shop it out. You have to shop out your tax returns. You have to shop this out. You have to shop everything out. You can't do anything. You can't work on your car anymore because of the computers. So what we're suggesting is that big business runs our government, runs the world. All right, multinational corporations. So part of our agenda is to boycott and turn our backs and walk away from all multinational corporations and only spend your hard-earned cash at your local baker, your local butcher, at small markets, micro and Australian businesses, not the multinationals. It's a community day. You're actually meeting, connecting with people socially. And B, you're supporting small business rather than the big multinationals and BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street, which pretty much own everything, including the media and the pharmaceuticals. So this is how we take our power back. We do it with where we spend our money. We do it with educating ourselves, and we do it with turning our back on. I walked away from the AFL 5 years ago because they were too woke. And I used to take my kids 10 games a year as a Hawthorn member for many, many years. I've never been back to a game. I don't play cricket anymore. I walked away from my old life. I quit McDonald's, KFC. I walked everything, Coles, Woolworths. And even just looking back many years ago, I've watched farmers tip milk down the drain because of the predatory pricings of Coles and Woolworths mainly. Orange trees get bulldozed because they bring concentrate in from Brazil. I mean, this attack on the
Issues that
farmers
have come to the light because of the media, I would add. And look, I've been in the media for over 30 years, in it, out of it, all those kind of things. And that is the beauty of our democracy, I think, sometimes. Yes, it's not perfect, but I feel like it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, look, we've got to have it. It's got to be there. And even people in the media now, you're seeing Carl Stefanovic, you're seeing Kyle Sandilands, you're seeing Dave Hughes be very vocal now. They're a little bit late to the party, but but that's okay, because they're actually listening and they're realising what we've been saying, and now they're getting on the bandwagon, and that's happening all over the place.
I think you're a little bit different to some people in this group that I want you to give me a term for, right? I want you, a term that's not sovereign citizens, because I agree with what you're saying there, right? But it sounds like what you're saying is protest with your money, go to the local shop, vote for a different change of government. You're not actually sounding like an anarchist. You're sounding like someone who's just trying to get everyone to use their democratic right to progress change.
Correct. We've got a plan, and the power of the people is far greater than the people in power. And we're making great change. The My Place Gympie, they've got nearly 1,800 members in Gympie now. Now, and they're doing it by the book. After a 2-year battle, they've had fluoride removed from their water. Them and the Fraser Coast Council just had a 226 wind turbine farm cancelled. It's gone. And now they're working on stopping the fire ant poison coming onto the farmers' property. So we are doing it. I interviewed 2 guys from Gympie and one from the Port Macquarie Council, a councillor there who's on the same page as us. We have a councillor on the Broken Hill, the mayor. So we are actually getting people of my mindset onto local councils and starting to actually get some information and starting to turn things around from inside as well.
All right. It's been fascinating. And as I said to you when we were setting up our tech checks, I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm just McKnight.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good one.
And I always appreciate a good chat. So, Darren, from my place, thank you very much for joining us on McKnight tonight. I genuinely do appreciate it.
No worries, Rob, and appreciate the chance to express my views and a lot of people's views in this country on your program. So thank you.
Cheers. The best place to watch McKnight Tonight is on YouTube. Help us monetize the show by going to youtube.com/@McKnightTonight. And you can always become a paid member. That gives you exclusive live streams and early access to videos. Just go to youtube.com/@McKnightTonight.